Welcome to Good Game Pocket Edition, our lean, low-down, for gamers, by gamers. I'm Hex.
And I'm Barjo, and this week we discover there's no business like snow business as we get nice and chilly in Lost Planet 3.
But first, let's take a look at the long-awaited arrival of Diablo III on console.
The power of the fallen star awakened me, and soon all will suffer.
A year after its debut, Blizzard's classic point-and-click loot-grabbing sim holds up well on console. Targeting the waves of enemies is just as easy as it ever was, and flicking the controller stick to do combat rolls is a nice touch. Plus, now 4 players can quest together offline on the one console.
Visually, I was impressed with how well it held up on console, and I'm just glad they've got difficulty settings now. I know they added this system later on PC, but I'd already stopped playing at that point. They've also made some other difficulty tweaks to some abilities, and also the monster density has been reduced in certain areas for console, from what we can tell.
We were only able to spend a short amount of time with this version of the game, but it's clear that it's a faithful port for everyone who wasn't able to play it on PC.
I become more powerful.
We didn't score this version, but we both gave the original game 9.5 when we reviewed it on PC last year, and you can find that full review on our website.
And now it's time to snoop around someone's house in Gone Home. You play Caitlin Greenbrier, who returns from a trip to find her family home abandoned and a desperate note from her sister begging her not to investigate. As you search around this house, you interact with almost everything as you begin to piece together the events from journal entries and discarded possessions. In spite of this game's slow pace, I was anxious the whole time, Hex. I think they built suspense really well.
I know, I couldn't stop thinking about the Slender Man games. I was so jumpy.
Still think he's in there somewhere.
And I love the way I was able to piece together the mid-90s setting by spotting details like an episode of X-Files circled in their TV guide. It's almost weird and voyeuristic rifling through all of these personal belongings, but it tells so much about this family.
Yeah, this game definitely delivers on atmosphere as it drip feeds you its interesting storyline.
When you live in one place your whole life, your next door neighbor is kind of like your default friend. And Daniel only got weirder over the years.
I thought the voice acting and the writing was actually quite beautiful, but I think the price point is way too high for the type of game this is, so I gave it 6.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
I thought this was really great storytelling, so I gave it 7.5. Over on Spawn Point, some 90s nostalgia got an HD coat of paint with a Flashback remake. The 1992 original was hailed as a classic platformer for its cinematic animation and gritty sci-fi atmosphere. Awakening in a strange land with no memory, your character's only clue is a mysterious message he recorded for himself.
Conrad, I am you, or at least I was. They've taken parts of your memory.
To solve the mystery, you'll need to complete a few puzzles, but mostly you'll just be shooting a lot of robots. The visuals have had a serious upgrade, and the gameplay's been tweaked as well, but the game's platforming core remains unchanged.
I was impressed by how well they've developed the art style. They've really constructed a rich sci-fi setting. I can't say the gameplay survived the transition as well though. It has been improved over the original for sure, but the difficulty really spikes at one point and I just found myself rage quitting.
I like the many steps they've taken to modernise this old game, but it just wasn't quite polished enough to keep me interested, so I gave it 5.
Yeah, it's a bit rough, I gave it 5 as well. Next up, Rayman Legends. Yes, the little guy with the helicopter hair is back and proves there's a lot of life in the old platforming genre. 1 minute I'd be fighting a monstrous luchador, the next I'd be turned into a chicken while Murphy tunneled through giant cakes for me. It's clear the designers have let their imagination run rampant. Plus, the game's been created so that it works well as both a challenging solo game and an easier co-op experience for younger players.
Originally, this game was going to be exclusive to Wii U and feature a co-op mode where an extra player swipes the touchscreen to drop platforms in the background. I'm glad they decided to rejig the game for other consoles though. We played the game on 360 and you can now command an AI helper to move platforms around while you play. Manipulating
the backgrounds was challenging, and this game is actually kind of brilliant. The locations and scenarios are endlessly varied, yet the gameplay remains consistently polished. And I love the way this game flows, like an orchestra of animation. I gave it 9.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
It was 9.5 from me as well. Okay, Badge, we should go answer some questions that we asked Good Game.
Yeah.
Good game.
All right, Badge, let's get a question answered and, whoa! Okay, we've got quite a heated one here.
Well, I love a good heated question, Hex. Let's do it.
All right, well, it's from Michael in Adelaide, South Australia. Despite being PC Gamer's best game for E3 this year, how come no review of CCP's Valkyrie for Oculus Rift, which has now been announced for release in 2014? Hex even said a few weeks ago if only they had Battlestar for the Oculus. Well, they did, and do. Just no review from Good Game. More and more Good Game seems to cater for Gen Y and no one else. Some of your gaming viewers started gaming when they first came out in the 80s, you know. Not all of us want reviews on anything with a sword or a bow, you know. Some of us play Stalker, some of us play Metro, some of us play Eve. Marginalised and disappointed.
Phew, all right, Michael. Well, firstly, we love the passion and thank you for writing in, but let's run through some of your concerns. Now, Valkyrie isn't out and it won't be out till next year, so that makes it impossible for us to review at this stage.
Yeah, and with our E3 schedule jam-packed with developer interviews, we just didn't have the time to line up for what was only a short 5-minute demo. We have to carefully consider the content that we're getting while we're over there in the US. All we'd have been able to say about it would have been based on a really quick impression. And I'd still love to play a Battlestar Galactica game on Oculus. Saying that I could get that experience from a Valkyrie game isn't quite the same thing, though, even if it is set in space. I mean, that's kind of like saying Star Trek and Star Wars are the same thing, which they're just not by a long shot, obviously. But mark my words, Michael, we have heard about Valkyrie, we are excited for it, and when it does come out, we will review it.
And as for Stalker and Metro, well, we love those games. In fact, we've reviewed them on the show before. But we freely admit when it comes to Eve, well, it's something that we've always wanted to cover and look at or maybe do a story on, and we are always looking at a way to do that, so hopefully we can in the future. It is a very deep and complex world and not something that we want to spend a little bit of time on. We want to do it justice.
Yeah, so hopefully with that in mind, you feel a little bit less marginalised and disappointed by us. We aim to celebrate the whole wonderful spectrum of gaming and leave out no one.
Yes, okay, Hex, and speaking of the wide world wonderful spectrum of gaming, let's delve into the inevitable highs and lows of your review.
Yes. And I'm curious to see what people thought of Brothers, A Tale of Two Sons, which was really affecting and made me quite teary in the end.
Yes, and I don't think you were the only one, Hex. In fact, mostly people seem to be quite moved by it, including our rather prolific resident reviewer, H.2, who wrote, "There comes a time where a game comes out of the blue that is truly moving, and it's a rare occasion for a game to move me as this one did. I love my fantasy, and this game is no exception. A true tale of two brothers going on a journey through a beautiful yet dark world as you go through puzzles and navigate through the dangers that lie before you. The way the two brothers work together and look after each other through adversity, and the bonds made with other people in the world is exceptional. This was another gaming experience which moved me, and I want to see more like it. 10 out of 10.
Well said, HG.2. Meanwhile, Carper here was equally moved, saying, "This is one of the most beautiful, moving things I have ever seen. 9 stars.
And CCG definitely seemed to agree, writing, "I'm not going to lie, but I bawled my eyes out in the end. It was amazing. I loved the look of the game, and yes, the controls were tricky, but that's what makes it unique. I think they should make another one, possibly. Maybe make this one longer? Or have another epic journey with another person. I really do wish it was longer, because I just finished it in one night, and I'm craving some more. Lol, 8.5 stars.
Well, I'm definitely with you on the call for a sequel there, CCG, but of course, your review wouldn't feel right without a little bit of hate, and the lowest score this week comes courtesy of D-Man, who writes, "Too good, but it's like Sims. No talking. What is this, Lego Batman? It's a little good. 4 stars.
Well, a fairly positive, negative review there, D-Man. But on that note, Hex, we're out of time, so I think we should go back to the studio.
Yes.
Good game.
Ah, Hex, I have some fond memories of the first Lost Planet game, shooting big giant aliens in their soft weak spots for maximum damage. Oh, those were the days.
Yeah, but the second one went for more of a co-op approach, and personally I thought it was a big pile of grindy rubbish. But maybe it'll be third time's a charm for this series. Lost Planet 3 is a prequel taking place on EDN 3 years before the first game in the planet's very first colony.
You have a main base of operations, and from there you can jump into your rig and head out into the cold, harsh environment. And you're also working for the Nevet Corporation, which fans of the series will remember from the first game as being the tyrannical villains. So it does get more interesting once the story progresses and the conspiracies unfold.
This place has secrets.
Yeah, and while the world is fairly open hub, there's only one main story mission to follow at a time. And most areas you're not supposed to go are shut off, so you don't get too far off track. But there are plenty of side quests and optional missions that give you a good sense of freedom.
And you're usually free to jump out of your rig at any time and go exploring. You'll often find specialized components or some extra T-energy off the beaten track, and T-energy is also currency now, so there's no more of that constantly freezing to death like in the first game.
Yeah, and it's a much closer over-the-shoulder third-person perspective than in previous games, which I think many people will like. There are, of course, the huge bosses as well. Fighting them on foot was exciting when you get the chance, but fighting them in the rig is a bit disappointing.
Yeah, it would have been nice if the rig versus monster combat was a bit more involved rather than just block, grab, drill, repeat. We did have limited access to the multiplayer. We reviewed this pre-release, so we weren't able to find a lot of games, but we did try out the 3 versus 3 wave mode. 2 teams fight off a few ways of Acrid cooperatively, and then eventually end up in a final fight against each other for some territory. It's an interesting spin on a wave mode, and the matches I played were pretty fun. Although there was only one type of Acrid that ever showed up, which seemed like a missed opportunity. It would have been nice to see some of the bigger enemies make an appearance.
But what are your final thoughts, Bajo?
Well, I think there's a lot to like here, so I gave it 7.5 out of 10 rubber chickens.
It was 7 from me.
Good game.
Well, that's all the time we have for Pocket Edition this week, but don't forget you can catch full episodes of Good Game 8:30 PM on ABC2.
And if you have any questions you'd like us to answer, then you can do so at our website, here.
And next week we're going to have a look at Total War Rome 2.
Rome may have raised, trained me, but my loyalty is to my people.
Till next time, may all your games be good ones. Hex out.
Bajo out, bye!